I think we're going to go ahead and get started here so that we'll still have a few members that are coming in to join us, but let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. Thank you guys for coming today, and thank you to the City of Auburn for letting us host our meeting here. Let's go ahead and start with introductions. So would you like to go this way and start?
Sure. My name is Alan Painter. I am the Housing and Human Services and Health Policy Advisor for the King County Executive, and it's a pleasure to be here in Auburn.
I'm Jackie McLean, and I'm the Director for the Department of Community and Human Services at King County.
Pete Lewis, Mayor of Auburn, host of the day.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I'm Doug Hoople. I'm the current chair of the veteran side of the Levy Oversight Board. I'm also a member of the King County Veterans Program, one of their representatives on this panel.
Stan Gano, I'm District 3 representative on this panel for Kathy Lambert. I'm also on the King County Veterans Advisory Board.
Lauren Hadler on the Veterans Board, representing Julia Patterson, District 5.
I'm Kathy Lewis, and I'm District 7 representative for Pete von Reichbauer.
And I'm Robert Stevens Jr., representing the Honorable Larry Gossett in District 3.
I'm Kate Slomako. I'm on the Human Services side, and I'm the ad hoc.
Okay. Kathy Hadler, King County District 5 for Julia Patterson, Human Services.
I'm Lauren Lickton, the co-chair of the Human Services, District 9, appointed by Councilmember Larry Dunn.
Thank you. And I'm Kathy Brash. I'm also the co-chair of the Human Services side of the board, and I'm representing Kathy Lambert for District 3. So we would like to start out with Mayor Pete Lewis. Would you like to say a few words for us?
You want me up here?
Okay. Wherever your camera wants you.
Well, I can go on. You know, I'm used to speaking in this room at any particular place. But I wanted to welcome you all here, and it really is appropriate that you came here to this room. It was just shy of 8 years ago that at two of these tables, another mayor and I sat down with a couple of staff people, and we're talking about a levy that had been in place for decades. It was the veterans levy that was in place to put in the time of the Korean War. But frankly, what we saw was that the initiatives, the citizen-approved initiatives, had drained the levy of all its capacity. And we had been seeing the need to do something for our veterans in King County and for human services as well. It was the former mayor of Enumclaw, John Wise, and I that sat down to talk about this, and we had been working through for half a decade with Julia Patterson and others on the human service side, and we had been working for some time on the veteran side to see what could be done. And out of that, Mayor Wise at the time and I were both on the King County Regional Policy Committee, and we took that to the RPC and asked them to look into a veterans levy. And there was, to say that there was a great deal of discussion would be an understatement. And we finally crafted, and it literally got out of our control. It just kept on getting better. And we had planted something, we didn't know how far it would go, and it just kept on expanding. And we kept telling the council members and the other members of the RPC that this would have widespread support. When we started talking about it and we were crafting what the language would be, it got a lot of support from a lot of different sides. And it passed out of the Regional Policy Committee where nobody thought it would, and we were, frankly, John Wise and I were the most surprised people in the world. We did believe that if it ever got to the voters, it would pass. We were a little surprised by the popularity, even for us, of what we saw come out of the polls. When it passed with such a large margin for both the veterans and the human service, and we realized, frankly, we knew that the veterans part of it led that levy. We knew where the need was, and anybody in South King County will tell you where need is. We know. We very rarely were getting the money, but we knew where the need was. It was here. And so having these funds available for our veterans, the veterans of prior wars that we saw had been one of the biggest problems for us to have to deal with, that we needed to help, we needed to assist, and couldn't find a way. Having finally found a method to help them and to bring them in, including myself. I mean, for 30 years I would not even talk about anything to do with Vietnam or anything like that. My wife convinced me to become more involved. The human services part of it is what brought me to the table. And I've really been much more involved on the veteran side ever since, because of all the need that we saw with the homeless, where a majority of the homeless in King County were veterans, where there was so much need of service, and those National Guard units that had, frankly, nothing coming back. And we're just supposed to integrate back in society after being faced with the reality of wars, and again, and then again, and then again. So what you do makes a difference for an awful lot of people. I wanted to make sure that this was taped for a couple of reasons, but the real reason was the problem that I see to this date is to get the word out to the most basic levels, that people know what services are available. The standard methods of how we used to get information out for the last half century, frankly, don't work anymore. And they're not seeing it. The brochures that sit in our libraries, our senior centers, our community centers are there, and they say the services are available. Many of our veterans and people in need for human services will never, ever look at a brochure. We need to find new ways. If we're going to have this videotape, we'll have it streamed, we'll have it on YouTube, and we hope that you'll do the same thing in many new and innovative ways to get the word out to the people who have the need and send them to the places where those needs can be filled. So thank you all as members of the Oversight Committee. I have to say that when John Wise and I sat down and we talked about this and talked about the need for an Oversight Committee, that was one for veterans, one for human services, to make sure that A, it didn't get diluted on either side, and B, that the money was always going to where it was supposed to go. Having this actually come to reality is such a blessing to me, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you. We really appreciate all the hard work that you did and your team did to really be the driving forces behind making this levy a reality. So thank you. Next, I'd like to introduce Jackie McLean, who is really our boss. She's the director of the Department of Community and Human Services. Jackie.
Okay, thank you. And I was going to sit, but I might stand, then I can see.
Uh-oh. You're running for public office?
And I have notes today. Because you've done such a lot, I need to keep on track and get through it. So thank you. And thank you, Mayor Lewis, for both hosting us and for your kind words. This really has been a hard-working board. And as you said, spurred on by yourself and Mayor Wise and assisted by Councilmember Ferguson from the King County Council. And yes, I do recall those very hot public hearings all those years ago, which ended in this successful levy. So I wanted to say a few thank yous, and then I wanted to remind you of a few of the accomplishments that you have done as a board. First of all, I wanted to thank our staff, Marcy and Laird, sitting over here, who have put in countless hours, particularly Marcy, who's been here almost from the very, very beginning of this, and supported us, the executive and the council, with millions of questions, and supported the boards, and provided endless pieces of information in a gracious manner. So thank you to both of you. You have also prepared 18 different reports for council, so a big achievement over the years. So Bill Goldsmith and John Hoskins, and John is here, have worked tirelessly over the life of the levy to crunch the data and give us the numbers of people served, services provided, the analysis that shows what a difference it has made in people's lives. So thank you, John. A big effort and a lot of you to Dick Wu and John Tran, who are not here today. They're the finance people, and they're the people that have kept the books in order, that have told us when to stop spending, to spend more, and to really keep track of all the finances and the lots and lots of different projects that they've gone to. Joel, I saw Joel, there he is. Joel Esty, thank you, Joel, for your work. Joel has averaged about 60 presentations a year on behalf of the levy to all sorts, a myriad of different community and municipal agencies. So thank you, Joel. You have helped about 350 veterans a year over the phone to get services and to seek assistance. And this year alone, Joel's efforts to help veterans resulted in a number of veterans receiving $125,000 in awards from Social Security or the VA that they might not either have access. So thank you, Joel.
Good job.
So Anna Markey joined our team last year to shepherd the levy renewal process, and Anna did a wonderful job diving into county government. She came from the private sector, and learning how things work, and also working with the executive, the council, the regional policy committee to passage the documents and writing the service improvement plan with the assistance of the boards and a number of different entities. So very successful year's work. Thank you, Anna. And finally, Linda Peterson, who's not here today, and Deb Gay have been the leadership behind a lot of the staff work here. So thank you for your efforts. So most of all, I'm here today to acknowledge and thank our board members. So several of you were on the very first board meeting that was held on, can anybody remember? February 21st, 2007. So in case you've forgotten, Robert, Stan, Kathy, Doug, Bill Wood, and Roger Wells were all at that meeting. So you've been in it for the long haul.
At the Safeco Center.
You know, I remember the meetings in your office prior to.
We're not going to tell about those.
To make sure we had everything ready. It was important.
Yeah, it was a big deal, that's for sure. And the Regional Human Services were Edith Nelson, Doria Elias Garcia, and Kathy was in that first group as well, so thank you. And can you also guess how many board meetings ago that was? Who wants to guess? How many board meetings ago was that?
Are you counting all the subcommittee meetings? No.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, 50.
So it's more than that.
Yeah.
Got to be more than 100.
Because we had 6 years subcommittees.
6 years of subcommittees? Forget it.
170 meetings ago. So you're newbies, Lauren. That's a long way to go. So, and you reviewed along that way. You reviewed program plans and designs and read proposals for 36 different procurement plans, and each of those had sub-meetings and different documents to review. So a heroic job. So you started the very first meeting reviewing the $5 million procurement plan under Strategy 2, Ending Homelessness, and look where you've come to from here. So we asked you to hit the ground running, and you haven't stopped for all these years. So your input was instrumental in directing the final program designs for the levy and resulting in several improvements. And I have a couple of examples of improvements that both boards have facilitated over the years. So the Regional Human Services Levy Board broadened the PTSD training focus to include victims of domestic and other violence in addition to veterans. Reminded staff about the importance of making services appropriate for communities of color, and advocated successfully to ensure the levy homeless services focused not just on adults but looked at the needs of the homeless youth as well. And the new Service Improvement Plan ordinance includes language that homeless youth housing programs are among those to be considered for capital funding as we move forward. The Veterans Board was equally vocal in their priorities. They ensured that the mobile medical van services in South King County were provided by a staffed medical van instead of a black bag approach that previously was nurses working out of their cars. They advocated for the Veterans Hotline and then worked to ensure follow-up was provided to each person that called the hotline, that it wasn't just a call that ended there. And they were successfully connected to services, and advocated so strongly for the needs of military families that a new counseling service activity was included in the new SIP. So thank you. Since the boards were first formed in 2007, you've also donated over 2,000 hours of your personal time to the citizens of King County, and that's an extraordinary effort. So you've helped oversee the expenditure of how many millions? Anyone guess?
What was it?
13 a year.
78 million dollars. And all of you, as you move forward, how much expenditure are you going to oversee over the next 6 years?
What to say about that?
Probably even more.
You got an increase.
I was going to say,
$102 million. So congratulations. So our annual report counted over 82,000 individuals served by the levy, and when we prepare our 2011 report, we're expecting well over 100,000 people will have been served by this levy. So time and again you have demonstrated to council members, to taxpayers, how important and how valuable and how meaningful the work of the levy has been, and how also important your oversight work has been over these years. And it's in no small part due to your efforts that the levy was approved by the voters again for 6 years. You worked tirelessly. So on behalf of Executive Dow Constantine, I'd like to congratulate you on a job well done. And he couldn't be here today, so he's prepared a letter for each of you, and Alan is going to say a few words on his behalf and give you a nice thank you.
Unfortunately, Dow could not be here, so I have the pleasure of being here in his stead. And been great things said already, so I just wanted to say a very few things. That essentially, this levy, the work that you've done is about collaboration. It's about working with the public, it's the Levy Oversight Board, it's working with the suburban cities throughout King County, ultimately the council and the executive. So it's a collaboration, which is what makes things happen. It's communication. Basically, without communicating the success that we just heard that Jackie talked about, communication you've had with your peers, communication that we've had with the cities, with the unincorporated areas, to let people know what a difference is being made, laid the groundwork. And finally, of course, it's about compassion. It's about understanding that there are people who are returning to our country in need. It's about those who are here that we want to help out with, and it's about the spirit of a town like this where people come together and take care of each other. And it's those things that made the levy successful, and why we had a 69% yes vote. So it's really fantastic that the great work that you've done. I'll read one letter, and then I get the pleasure of handing them out. So this letter goes to each of the members. I'd like to take this opportunity to commend you on your excellent service on the Veteran Service Citizens Levy Oversight Board, or Human Services Levy Oversight Board. We've accomplished so much since the Veterans and Human Services Levy was first approved by the voters of King County in November 2005. Thanks in no small part to your efforts and those of the other oversight board members. Together, you work tirelessly to review plans to implement services for the community, their families, and others in need in King County. Served on countless review panels for competitive bid processes, helped to monitor and report on the progress of levy programs and services, and spoke at numerous community meetings and forums to share information on the success of the levy. I am particularly impressed to learn that together levy board members have donated more than 2,000 volunteer service hours, as Jackie said, to oversee the implementation of our levy. Thank you for your commitment to improving the lives of veterans, their families, and our county's most vulnerable residents. Your contributions have been truly extraordinary. Congratulations on the successful renewal of the Veterans and Human Service Levy. I look forward to working with you in the coming years. Sincerely, Dow Constantine, King County Executive. So on his behalf, thank you, and I'll just walk through and hand these to each of you who are here. Doug?
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I got sort of a kick out of Jackie's comment about hitting the ground running, because I remember when we started out on these boards that we really did hit the ground running, because we would have maybe 4 procurement plans that we'd have to look at a meeting. So we did have a lot to do in those first days. And I know that each of us is proud to be able to sit on these boards, and we celebrate with the citizens of King County all the achievements that the board, that the levy has been able to make over the past couple of years. Let's go ahead, I guess, and we'll start, yes, Robert.
I'd just like to add, if I may, since our first meeting was in Council Gobb's district, the building that we met in was the, those of you who were higher than the tadpole, was the first office of Marble Cities. And across the streets from where we were is CAMP, the Central Motivation Program. And that was the first project of the Johnson administration anti-poverty program. So again, it made a full loop of the services of providing to the community. So I want to thank you for meeting in our community and in such a historical site to continue the program of helping those that need it.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment? Doug?
You know, one other thing, there is one person who's not here who did help us get off to that running start, which is Sadakifu Akina James, who is retired. But I mean, she was really the godmother and the godparent, or whatever you want to say, of this, and really kept us in line and got us all the materials and really kept us going. And she is an outstanding woman and very interested in their community. And you can see it in her efforts in helping us succeed.
Yes.
She definitely kept us in line.
Yes, she kept us in line.
And let me make it clear.
Well, I think
Exactly. Does anybody else want to make a comment? No? Okay. Actually, what we're going to do right now is we're going to take about a 10-minute break so that we can enjoy some refreshments and just chat with ourselves a bit. And then we'll be back in about 10 minutes. So, okay. We're going to go ahead and get started again so that we can get ourselves all out of here at a reasonable time. So I'll just wait till everybody gets settled again.
Where did Robert go?
And we've been joined by Bill Wood, who is also on the veterans side. Let's see, do we have anybody else come in? Nope, I think that's it. So we are going to continue on with our business meeting portion of this meeting. First, we're going to start out with a review of the joint meeting summary from our last meeting. Did everybody get a chance to see that from our September 29th meeting that we had down in Belltown? Everybody have a chance to look over those minutes? Okay, were there any comments, questions, corrections?
I move we approve the minutes of the last joint meeting.
Okay, I guess we'll take a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, great. The next thing we're going to move on to is the chair's report. And I'm going to start out by reviewing from the Human Services Levy side some of the highlights from the past, since our past meeting. Since we last met, the County Council continued the review of the Service Improvement Plan, the SIP. In October, the Levy Board sent a letter to the Council urging its approval of the SIP to ensure seamless implementation of the 2012 levy. In it, the Board expressed support for the SIP funding for the 2-on-1 community information line, including homeless adults, young adults, as potential recipients of levy-funded housing. Then at our October meeting for the Regional Human Services Levy Oversight Board, we heard from Kathleen Southwick, who is the Executive Director of the Crisis Clinic and 211. She shared information about their services and the array of information available on their database about local housing and human services. This is the first of the new projects funded by the 2012 SIP to be reviewed by the Board. The procurement plan described this activity is scheduled for its second review at today's meeting. We also heard from Gloria Albetta, with Public Health presented a procurement plan describing the community's court project that will receive some levy evaluation funds. And also another note, the Family Village at Issaquah Highlands opened in October 25th, adding 97 new apartments. And the levy gave just under $315,000 to this project. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Doug Kupel, and he's going to give us the chair's report for the veteran side.
Okay, I think to follow up with what Kathy said on the SIP, the board chairs, Lauren Lickey and myself, presented that letter of support for the SIP to the King County Regional Policy Committee, and then we followed that up a couple weeks later on October the 24th by repeating that presentation to the King County Council's committee as a whole. And I think someone may have already mentioned that earlier this week on Monday it passed, the ordinance was passed approving the new SIP, so we're all on board and ready to go. Okay, at our board meetings, at the October board meeting, we heard a presentation from David Green, our program manager for the Washington Department of Veteran Affairs levy-funded Veterans Incarceration Program, an update on that. And he also provided us an update on the current programs and history of the Veterans Court, which will be starting with the new levy. Get beyond just doing the incarceration program, be able to start working on veterans and justice activities in that area. And I've got a note here about our hours, but I think it's been twice repeated how many thousands of hours were reported, so that's about all we have from the veteran side.
Okay, great, thank you. Any comments or questions? Okay. Next, we're going to move on to the procurement plan and activity review regarding the 211 Community Information Line. And we've got Deborah Gay and Marcy Kelsey who are going to be presenting on that.
Yes. I guess I'll do it here. I'm going to reverse that order just a little bit. I'll do the vet side first. There are two new activities in this renewed levy. As you know, most of the levy is a continuation of existing programs. So we have one new program on the human services side and one new program on the vets levy side. On the vets levy side, which I'm going to speak on, there's a longer time frame in terms of developing that new program. The new program, as Doug mentioned, is the Veterans Court. That Veterans Court is going to be a King County district court, and it's going to be a mental health treatment court. So it will be it will be within the mental health treatment court system. Helping to support that Vets Court will be the Veterans Incarcerated Program. That right now, and we are actually very privileged to have Bill Wood here today, because Bill was one of the people who helped create the Veterans Incarcerated Program many years ago, Bill.
Many years ago.
And you were working at the WDVA
yes.
at that time, and you saw the need to help veterans in those jails.
Yes. There was no example. This is the only county in the country that does something like this. And I had nothing going, just started showing up at the jail, talking to vets, doing outplacement for them.
That's great.
It worked out well.
It has. And so from that seed, it then grew into a program that has now gone statewide. So veteran incarcerated programs are now in other counties as well, but we really are the grandfather location for this program. And what they do is help the veteran who is coming out of jail get connected to the VA, get connected to housing and employment and other support services that they need. With the new vet court coming online, there is a higher level of support that's going to be needed from a veteran who has qualified because of a mental health condition to go through Veterans Court and not through the regular court system. So Veterans Court will essentially delay any criminal process, and they will be under the jurisdiction of the court, and a team of people will be helping to support reintegrating that veteran back into the community. Our veterans incarcerated staff will be part of that team. and they will help with the community connection. So the housing, employment, and what other services are available to them in the community. So we are in the process of still talking with the WDVA and mental health. It is our mental health division that's going to be the lead on developing the procurement plan for Veterans Court. We are still talking in terms of what does that contract need to look like for the VIP program. It's very likely we're going to write a short contract, a 6-month contract, because the Veterans Court is still being developed. So that's a process that's still being developed. And then in January, Andrea LaFazia, who is the person doing this in our mental health division, is writing the procurement plan. And so she will bring that to the Veterans Levy Board and start to talk about what is the model and what is the proposal for Veterans Court. And this will be the beginning of the conversation. So we'll have that in January and more to come in February. There is a council proviso in the budget that this proposal be finalized and be taken to the council in June. So we will be doing our work early in the spring for you to review, give your feedback and recommendations on that. It will then go to the executive and then finally to the council. So my report today is to kind of give you a sense of what's ahead for us in the first half of next year. And for the veteran side, it will be a lot about the Veterans Court. And now Marcy is going to talk about...
Can I ask a question on it? Will there be, in the past, our procurement plans have always gone out to the public for public input.
Yes.
Will that be required on this because it's a court thing and kind of established?
We still will post it for public comment.
Okay. Good.
Yes, absolutely. You'll have the same process.
Good.
Robert?
I know it hasn't been all put together, but one thing just flashed in my head. Will that court also work with the veterans, that 7-year where you can petition the court to get your voters' right back and other privileges?
No.
Or
This is really a mental health treatment court, so it'll be
different from the
different than...
Because one time there was an attorney that was part of one of the incarceration programs that presented to us. This is different.
Well, what about that? Wouldn't that be more under the legal justice thing that we added on last year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Remember last year we
Northwest
added
Legal-
one on. So.
The Northwest Legal Assistance Program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's continuing in the new levy. They're
Right.
getting a little bit more money. And so
Good.
we'll continue to support veterans on that side, civil side.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any more questions on the veterans levy side? So then I'll pass the baton to Marcy, and she'll talk about the procurement plan and the human services levy.
Just a comment, how will veterans be referred to this Veterans Court? Through the incarcerated program at the county?
Yes, the Veterans Incarcerated Program will do the screening. They can be referred by the judge or the public defender or even the prosecutor.
All right.
So, yes.
Is that working with MID as well?
Yes,
Okay.
it is. Andrea is the manager of the MID program.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Okay, 211. Kathy Brash mentioned that at the October Human Service Board meeting, we had a presentation by Kathleen Southwick, who's the Executive Director of Crisis Clinic in 211. She talked about the services that all of their callers receive, as well as the resources that are available on their database. They keep a very large database of housing and human services that are available in King County. The procurement plan for 211 was posted on the levy website for the standard 2-week period for public comment. We received no comments. So we did not call a committee meeting to review that. And the procurement plan is now before you for a second review. So if you would like to, if you have any questions or if there's any discussion.
I just have one question about when it goes up onto the website for review. are people notified that it's up there, other than just the fact that, you know, if they have to check back to the website once in a while to see if anything new's been posted? Is there ever any kind of notification that's sent out to people that they could go take a look at this and review it, or?
Well, for competitive processes, we have a list, an email
Right.
list, and we notify people. We don't do that for procurement plans, but we certainly, on the homepage, make it very prominent that there is a procurement plan now available for input. So that's our primary method.
Okay, great, thank you.
I guess that goes back to something we discussed a long time about getting information in the local community newspapers. Because again, most of what I've heard about the stuff going on the web, people don't have staff that they can assign to sort of watch it every day or every week for RFPs or procurement and other stuff. So I guess the question is, are there going to be funds or resources to start putting our RFPs and procurements into local newspapers now? Or some of the other means of communications other than the web?
I don't think we've talked about procurement plans, but certainly about competitive bid processes. We're aware that we need to continue to explore ways to get that information out there so that the broadest number of people are aware that that opportunity exists.
So was anybody notified that this was on the web? That the word could be spread within any community?
Certainly the board members were aware.
Yeah.
And King County staff.
Oh, okay, okay.
Was aware so that they could share with individuals who might be interested.
Okay, good.
Okay, so at this point then, we're just seeing if there's any more comments from the board, and then if there is none, then we just turn it back to you for...
Let us know that you will support that and think it's a good project, and we can move ahead with the contract and have it in place January 1.
Okay, Lauren?
Is it, so it looks like it's 50,000 a year. I thought for some reason I got the impression when we first looked at it was just 50,000. I didn't realize it was a 50,000 renewable each year for the life of the levy.
That's correct.
So it is,
The new SIP has allocated 50,000
per year. Okay.
Okay. Robert?
One other question, again, not looking through it, but just doing the flashback of push 1, push 2. Has that improved of when you call in, you know, the waiting time that a person would have to wait, or you have to go through that push 1, push 2?
Oh, you mean the process of getting to a live person?
Getting to a person.
I know that they do have hours from 8 to 6, Monday through Friday. So that's when you get a live person. And then the database, via the website, you can access that at any time. And there's information on there if there's an emergency, you need assistance right away.
This one this time is during the after hours, is it going to bounce to that 800 number that I think we funded, was working with WDVA with? Or is it going to be separate?
I'm not that familiar with their phone system. I don't know if anybody else
You
knows.
reported on this in our last meeting.
Yes.
And I think,
Yeah.
go ahead. I think that the questions that you're asking, I believe they were reported in at our last Human Services meeting. And if I remember right, I'm doing this just from memory, but it is set up to bounce to other systems. But the impression that I got listening to their presentation was they have a lot of organizations they're representing, which you probably already know, and they're a clearinghouse for that. And so I'm not sure if the response rate has increased as much as their need has increased, specifically for this funding, and that's what this is specifically coming for. And so the impression I got was very much they're kind of holding it together in that meeting. And so we actually kind of put a little bit of gas on this to kind of help the process along so that we could jump in and vote and help and whatnot. So those are great questions. I think they did respond to that in our last meeting as it relates to their process and everything. And I was very comfortable with I felt very good about their presentation on what was happening in that meeting.
By 800 number, you mean the one one that's specifically for veterans.
Yes.
I think they refer the live operators during the day, but it's a separate service.
Separate
They're not, they can't push a button and connect you.
Yeah.
If you call them and you get the live person, they'll certainly refer you, but it would be more they give you, make sure you got to that. So they work as a clearinghouse, but not as a connector to that.
That's
The
correct.
800 number, whatever its hours are, they're separate from what we're talking about here, if you're referring to the veterans one.
Veterans one.
Yeah.
So, no, they're two separate entities with information links.
Now, I just have a question too, and I'm not quite sure how this fits into the new SIP. With this being originally a 4.5 activity, I believe, on the human services side, does the new SIP incorporate both boards into this plan, or was it just the human services side?
Just the human services.
Okay, so at this point, really, it would be the human services side who would have to make a recommendation on approving this plan or not. We appreciate your input, of course, but I guess, are there any questions or comments from the human services side as well?
I approve.
Okay, so,
We're ready to
one
move
more
forward.
question?
One quick question again, going back to our previous, because I think my understanding on the veteran side, we have split that block of money, and some went to the 211 and some went to the 800.
No.
Is that a different one?
Nothing went to the 211 because 211 wouldn't provide feedback.
Oh, that's right.
So we did,
211 would not recontact other people, and the 1-800 number with the DVA would.
what's being discussed right now is totally human services,
Okay.
side of the limit.
So then I think we all agree that on the human services side, we would make a recommendation to go ahead and proceed with this as it's been presented to us?
Yep, we agree.
Okay, great.
That's the way we do things on the human services side.
Push it on through.
Get that money out there doing good.
Okay,
Really good event.
did we have any more comments or anything from Deborah or from Marcy regarding those?
No, those were our reports.
Great. All right, thank you. So we're going to go then and look at some of the levy updates, and I believe Anna Marquis and Deborah are going to make that presentation for us.
So I only have one update, and it's great. The Doug already mentioned, just that on Monday, the full council approved the SIP. And I have hard copies, although I've heard some people want it spiral bound, so we can do that if that's what you all want. I can take these back, and I'm sure we have that machine somewhere.
tabs.
That's where I got it 6 years ago.
We're just used to having a big Bible from years
If
ago.
you want, okay,
Spiral
I'll do
bound.
that. It sounds like that's what everybody wants.
In a binder.
Thank you. So we can have that at the next meeting.
It was plastic
I
spiral.
know, but then we had the binder on the implementation.
Over the holidays, so.
I see your postponing. So yeah, that's it's finally approved. We went through the regional policy committee, and then committee of the whole, and then full council on Monday. So
Good job.
Great, well, thank you for all your hard work that you did on that as well.
Yeah.
Okay,
One
so.
more question.
Yes.
We said we had two programs, and maybe there was no technical change since we were already doing outreach. The persons of color and veterans women outreach, did we slip that under the title of outreach and strategy one as opposed to making a new program? Or how do we work
yes,
with
so
that? Is
in strategy 1, the veterans, there's activity 1.2, veteran outreach and engagement, and there are 3 activities under that. The first one is enhanced outreach to women, veterans, and veterans of color.
That makes him happy.
I think the saying is say, I'm well pleased.
Okay. The only amendment that took place during the council process was just a name change, which was basically for the Veterans Court. There's funding in there. In our proposal that we sent over, it was just called Emerging Programs for Emerging Veterans Justice Program. So that it would be sort of flexible for a variety of programs that are coming down the pike. And because there is now the King County Veterans Court, Treatment Court starting next year, the modification was just now it more explicitly says King County Veterans Court. And the language in that activity explicitly says that the majority of the funding or the funding should primarily be used to support the Veterans Treatment Corps. So that was the only substantive amendment.
Okay, any other comments or questions for Deborah or for Anna regarding the SIP? Okay. Doug, I think I'm going to go ahead and turn the meeting over to you. There's not a whole lot left.
Are we going to skip staff report from Marcy?
No, I'm going to let you. I'm going to let you go ahead
you're going to let me do that.
I am going to let you do that.
Is there anything left? Christmas party, New Year's party, things like that.
I know Kathleen has input to give, and she has to leave at 3:30, so.
Oh, she does?
We want to make sure and hear what she has to say, if that's possible. If not, I'll give her input, but.
I'll be very, very brief. Just wanted to mention, you know, the Veterans Board member Cynthia Lefevre is the mother of a catastrophically injured veteran. He had some complications and was in the hospital. He's recently been released, but what Larry and I would like to do, if it's okay with you, is send her a card on behalf of the board members to let her know that we're thinking of her and Maureen.
Thank you.
Other than that, I wanted to mention that Laird and I have been very busy developing contracts, and we have agreements with the different sections of King County, like the mental health section and public health, so that they understand the reports that they need to provide us, so we get all our data. So we're working on writing those agreements for 2012 so that we can have our programs continue nonstop January. So that's mostly what we have been up to. But thank you all for all your work on behalf of the levy, and we look forward to our next levy.
Yes. Right. Okay, good. I think the next thing on the agenda is old business. Looking at our minutes, I don't think there's any old business. Does anybody know of something we have brought up? I'm sorry, Robert, you hit your 5 questions for the day, so you're...
So it's 4.5.
No, you get your 5 questions in, so you're out of here. No, go ahead, Robert. Go ahead, Robert. You first. Go.
I believe it or not, got into my new email, but couldn't get back into it. But in going through the notes, I would like us to have in writing the appreciation that we spoke to and about at our last meeting for the hard work that staff has done and I feel will continue to do. And I didn't see that in the minutes, and I would like to see a record of that.
So you put in the minutes how great you are.
She also needed an assistant for the extra work for her.
Yes, exactly.
But yes, on the serious side, I'd like to see that be part of our archives.
Thank you.
Yes.
And now we got you for 6 more years.
Yeah.
What about grades?
Kathy, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to report on was that I sat in on a funding round for a procurement plan that had to do with supportive services for housing, and I know that the results of that will be coming out, I think, after the first of the year. Is that right? Yeah.
Hopefully before then.
Oh, okay.
We should be done with those in the next 2 weeks.
So those of you who haven't had the chance to sit in on procurement plans and that whole process, I hope you do get the chance to, because it's really interesting for one.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Any other things? Old business? Okay, new business. Is that you, Kathy? No?
I'm not
Do something?
business, I'm a
She just wanted to
public
report on
comment.
She wants public comment.
Oh, you wanted public comment?
Yeah.
Oh,
toward the
okay.
end.
So, does anybody have anything for new business? Seeing nothing for new business, go ahead, Kathleen. Oh. I'm sorry. What was that, old business?
Well, actually, it's both old and new, that what hasn't been mentioned is that the evaluation staff have been working diligently for the last 2 months, putting together an overall evaluation structure for the new levy. That we do now have evaluation. We created an evaluation template for every single funded activity that includes targets for performance, and all of the outcomes and objectives are aligned. So we will be producing in the next month. We'll sort of roll this all together and produce for public consumption by January an overall new levy evaluation plan. And then we can bring that forward in January.
Will it be available for the January meetings if we have, if we have a January meeting?
I still have to work internally with staff in terms of our vetting process and such.
Okay.
But we're working on drafting it now, so certainly by January or February, we'll have the implementation.
Here's those Okay. And since we don't have a strategy 5 anymore, that won't be reviewed by a subcommittee or something. It'll be brought to the whole oversight board as a whole.
Committee of the board of it as a whole.
Okay. Okay. Great. Okay. So Kathleen, go ahead.
All righty. Well, first I want to say that one meeting that I attended for the South Regional Human Services earlier in the year, a lot of discussion was on their 211 problems, and so I think they are probably jumping up and down in relief.
There's an issue.
Yes, absolutely. I attended a presentation in Tukwila done by the domestic Dawn, and then also done by the Tukwila Police Department. And it was on building resilient children for brighter futures. And on the panel discussion during this, we had our acting shelter director of Dawn was on there, which is Domestic Abuse Women's Network, and mental therapists from Sound Mental Health who are using this resiliency process in dealing with children that are, domestic violence or whatever reason that they are out there. So I was pleased to see our people on there. It really was. And then anybody that just wants to look at these, this is all of the things that Catholic Community Services funds, of which we also give a lot to that. So in just one eye shot, you can get the whole picture from one of these. And that's all I've got of those. So.
If I could add something, one of the things that we are going to be requiring in all our contracts is that any promotional materials, program materials, is going to need to indicate that they have received levy funding so that we really get the word out about the levy supporting their
Yeah,
activities.
because there was nothing in there.
There isn't? Well, there will be.
Just sort of a footnote, if I can add, Kathleen was talking about they might be happy with 211. I think you have to realize, though, too, 211 has lost some state funding. So you may not have to give up the fight yet. They're still probably looking for additional funding. We are not. We're just giving them a piece of money. It's not going to make their budget whole. So keep talking to your representatives at the state level and whatever level to keep funding 211 if you want it around. Stan, you hit something? And then
I do. Earlier we were talking about publicity and things like that. We had kind of a sidebar during the break, and if we want to reach out to the community, especially the generation that's returning right now, we've got to get involved in social media. The Washington State Department of Veterans Affairs has a Facebook page with a like, and they're keeping it updated, and there's a lot of information on there. We need to consider that and maybe work with the county exec on getting a Facebook extension from the Human Services side, even from the Veterans Program side.
Yes.
More work for you, Sharon. But we have to get involved in that area. That arena will get left behind. And if we want to reach out, and in turn, this is information that we can share with the colleges, who can add it to their pages. So it's just a spider web, and that's what the web's all about. Thank you.
We're also going to do some renovation, quite a bit of work on the veterans page, as well as the veterans program page, the services page, as well as the levy page.
When you told me you were revamping it, and we're in the process, and we were thinking we've got to find a way to.
More. You're absolutely
right.
Yeah. Okay. Before we use up all of our time, I'd like to make sure, does anybody in our public like to say anything? Yes, Sheila?
Yes.
Would you mind standing and identifying yourself? Or I don't know if you're comfortable with standing. I know she's got the back brace thing. Got the brace thing going there.
Still standing.
Okay.
I am Sheila Secret. I'm
She should stand closer to her mic.
Oh, wait, they're asking that you get closer to the mic.
Get closer to the mic.
Lauren, could you just handle that mic, because that's portable.
That's fine.
It comes up. Oh, let me get her?
Right.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? You're good.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm program manager for the Veteran Community Network, which is a program we started in 2006 to build a community-based connection, basically the bottom-up part from the WDBA's top-down plan. And for me, it was something to do after my daughter died. I knew I was going to hit the bottom. But I'm also on the governing board of the Committee on Homelessness and some other homelessness programs. But the reason I really wanted to say something today is we just ran into a huge problem with funders, and I know some of you may have heard about some problems with the Urban League. And when you look at the audit, does anybody know what I'm talking about?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
When you look at the audit and you start examining what the problems are, you look at things like accounting, the administrative and fiscal way that you do business. For me, I'm seeing this as a common problem throughout the community. And the biggest thing is we don't have an infrastructure, we don't have standards. And I even try to do a training in the community. You know, we talked about that before. We really need to have people prepared to even apply for funding. And I couldn't even speak the same language. And what I found is what we need is, I don't know if you've heard of the Unified Chart of Accounts, but that matches up directly with the 990s. And then there's also the OMB Circular A122, which is basically the language of how you write up what you're going to do. How do you spend? And so there's a big concern going into this next 6 years of how do we really connect the work with the people. When you look at new vets, like you said, it's social media. You don't have a Facebook page. For example, there's changes coming up, posted on the Facebook page, it goes all over. We had 200 tickets that we distributed for sound, I'm sorry, my brain's going bonkers, basketball women, whatever the name is.
The rain.
Storm, thank you so much. We distributed those in 24 hours by using social media. Younger vets are being left out. Women vets, I mean, I'm a woman vet, and I have yet to be served by the programs that we've started in the last year. We still have a ways to go. And so I'm asking that we really focus on how can we bridge that gap in bringing standards to the way that community groups do work. It's bad right now. There are groups who are frightened because they can't even apply. And I don't think we've really addressed that. I was at Walter Reed just before it closed in the amputee ward. And I said I would go back and I would continue to work on things. And it would be an embarrassment if we had this much money and this much time and we didn't address this. I had a suicide call this morning from a young vet. Flashes me back to going to a funeral for a vet who blew his brains out. And he could have been saved, but he couldn't connect to our programs. So I just really want us to think about, I don't want to have it on my conscience that we had a chance to do something turning the tide in this war and we didn't do it. So I wanted to send you something by email. My email wasn't cooperating, but I'll send it kind of a detail on strategies and ideas. But I promised that I wouldn't turn my back on them, and I really hope that we address this. So I just want to bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else back there? Oh, wait. I think, Lauren, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to share some of the things that are happening in our community, specifically through the congregation that I serve. I was sharing some of this with Alan earlier, but in November, we did a big food drive at our, we have two campuses in our church, New Life Church, one in Renton and one in Maple Valley, Covington, and we collected over 24,000 pounds of food and donated it to the Maple Valley Food Bank and the Renton Salvation Army Food Bank to help meet the needs in our community. Over 800 frozen turkeys and bags of food.
Wow.
As well. We're supplying Vision House and Vine Maple Place in the Maple Valley Food Bank with unopened gifts for the kids and the moms that they can put together and select and wrap and put under the tree at Christmas time. We've adopted 50 different families, whether it's single moms or families in need in our community, as well as we do a giving tree in our congregation, and last year we collected over $5,000 of gift cards to donate. And so in addition to what we're doing here, in the faith community, there's a lot of community service happening with that. And it's just good to know that's happening, that it's not just when we sit around this table, although it's important with what we do around this table is vital. There's also a lot of other great things happening, especially this time of the year, and with our economy and all this crazy stuff, there's a lot of people getting served. As well, the community supper that I helped start in Renton a couple of years ago, they're averaging 80 to 90 people each night that they're serving a hot meal to, on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. And the mobile medical van visits there twice a month as well. So a lot of great things happening in the Renton, Maple Valley, Covington area.
Did I see a hand over here? Robert. Robert, you used up your 5 questions. What is the okay, yeah, right. Okay.
I just want to reinforce what Sheila said. Because we've not had a committee meeting, but I've been getting some feedback from the community at large, especially in the African American vet and human service community. Urban I would say, I haven't seen the statistic, but just from armchair statistic, I would say 80 to 90% of the agencies use Urban League as a fiduciary. So when she was saying about being afraid, those agencies out there, which mainly, like many of the faith-based, you run programs out of the back of your pocket and hope somebody give you a little bit more money. And so we're scared. And I think that we have the tools here to take up that slack. And, you know, some of the research that I think that Sheila has done and put together can help us. But, you know, just the outreach program and what staff had to go through to get that program in place, let's be honest, it was pure hell, excuse my expression. And it was that way because of not having that structure or not being able to communicate with that requirement structure. You know, like the HUD form, I understand, is a nightmare. I don't think our community in general that's doing programs would ever be able to do a HUD program because we don't speak that language. But we still want to do things right. We still want to be accountable for the funds. And we need a system where we're able to communicate. It's almost like downtown VA can't talk to the hospital. But us vets can't understand that. They can understand it, you know, because they passed an act to keep that from happening. But they don't know the frustration that it causes for you to have to run downtown to pick up a piece of paper to run back up to the hospital in order to see a doctor. So if we can, and I'll work with Sheila to help put in some of the feedback I didn't get it from the general meeting. If we could look at that and try and pull some ideas on that and see how it goes back to the neighborhood newspapers. And that, to most of you that have to have 11 different things to do, write an article in a local community newspaper may not mean nothing to you. But I just heard the story that a veteran in Iraq had gotten the fax newspaper. And the only reason that we get fax newspaper is to read the obituary. When someone picks up a fax newspaper, that's the first thing. And a child over in Iraq called his mother and said, "Mom, I see one of our relatives passed away." And I said that to say this, those community newspaper means a lot to these, not only the smaller community, but the central area and out here. That's on our mainline communication. And I guess dichotomy and you know, the way that we do things, again, I think we have to start trying some of those things and listen to some of the people that are out there running programs at the back of their pocket. Okay. So I will work with Sheila to get a report to us to get some feedback on. Thank you.
Okay. Before I call us to adjourn, one thing from staff, are we all now on the King County email system, or do we still have some stragglers?
I
There's a few stragglers. Now,
I'm a straggler, I admit it.
now you got to go through the 10-step program. Okay.
I've admitted that's the first step, right?
That's the first step.
Okay. You're admitting your problem.
Yeah.
We'll have counseling right afterwards. Okay.
It's a good phase show.
Is there do we have a necessity for a January meeting for either one of the boards?
Yes.
So we're both, okay. So are we going to be back to our monthly meetings? Because we have been on a bi-monthly meeting for both boards and then the quarterly joint meetings. So I assume we're going to keep the quarterly certainly, but for a while now, until we get through the procurement plans and all that, we need to go back to monthly meetings.
But some of those might be joint anyways.
Yeah, and that's the other thing for those who missed some of the meetings. The other thing we were talking about is, since, hopefully we won't go through some of those giant procurement plans that we had last time. And also to help streamline that, instead of having some of the subcommittee meetings, we can just have a joint meeting of both boards and we just get it approved. And that can shorten up the process. We can still get our public input, and but we can get it approved and get it on the ground and get a little bit more faster, because we've gone through the process once before, so we can streamline it.
As long as we can get it ahead of time so we can review it, so we're ready for the meeting.
Yep.
And just to remind you, you only will have one new procurement plan.
Right.
You've one in the vets levy, and you've completed the one new procurement plan in the human services levy. So it's a little different now than when we first began.
It won't be so onerous, onerous, I guess. Or not odorous. We won't have long meetings, right? Okay. Oh, wait, one more thing. Yes,
one more thing. I would just like to thank everybody for coming to Auburn today. I'm just so happy we were here. And a special thank you to Doug and Bill and Roger. They came to the Veterans Day Parade, which was a great success. We had a beautiful day, and I just wanted to say thank you for coming and joining us on that day.
Aren't you going to invite them to your Christmas thing? Oh, they can't come? Okay. All right. If there's nothing else, let's adjourn. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.